Okay, we're back. And we're back with Mr. Rob Slocum, newly appointed County Administrator for Washington County. Let's stay on the economic development topic for a while, but let's look at the back end of economic development for a minute. We have the Business Development Commission, is that what it's called? Am I getting that name right?
There is the Business Development Department in Washington County, and then there's the EDC.
There is an Economic Development Commission.
Yes.
We have the Airport Advisory Board.
That's
we
right.
have Chief, and perhaps others. My question to you is, do you see any, some would say that some of the teeth that they had previously, or they're not being involved as much as they could have been.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying should have been. What is your vision? How do you see that evolving over time?
That's an excellent question. I would have put it on the page myself if you hadn't, because we just met about that yesterday, about the EDC, and we have a survey out to them, and it's not, we'd like to think it's not a bland, watered down survey of what do you think, but we really tried to get out and ask strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Where do you think we should be headed as an EDC? This is a commission that represents thousands of employees and a lot of the economic development that we have seen over the years already. So where are we headed? I think threading that with the Chamber of Commerce and Paul, GHC, Greater Hagerstown Committee, and Jim Kercheval,
Right.
Threading that together with some entrepreneurs in the community, some investors in the community, with Chief, is how are we going to weave that thread through a common production so that we can really get some traction out of economic development.
And also CVB is probably a very important part of that.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah,
So there are a number of players at the table.
They're well positioned, you know, the Convention Visitors Bureau. But again, we were talking off air here. You know, I work up at the Washington Monument there, and it's amazing how many people come there from out of state who absolutely love Washington County. And when I tell them everything that's here, you know, I said, well, you realize this is the county that has the most state and national parks of any other county in the United States of America.
Well, and
they
we
go,
have,
really?
yeah, and
I say yes, and I start. And I have one guy who came here who said he was going to spend a whole week in the area here just this week, going to all the sites and history. He didn't realize all the stuff that's in
retail
that
shopping
area.
space, history,
Yeah.
art. I mean, the museum, I think, that we have is second to none.
Well, yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean, it's
that's-
amazing.
And the Maryland Theater, that's a crown jewel in my mind.
I
Yeah.
just keep thinking there's a lot more. Somehow there must be a way to.
Yeah.
You would want
Well,
to
we
have a
need more-
nice resort or
we
something.
need more
that there's-
ambassadors, community ambassadors.
Well, yeah. Well,
like
I
you.
work real hard at this, you know,
So-
but it makes it pretty easy. I'm always amazed. Some of these people, they say it's so beautiful here. It's green. It's,
It really is.
you
It
know,
is.
when it's close to other things.
We and that's without
Like
the
Washington D.C.,
Yeah,
Baltimore,
exactly.
but that's nicer.
And that's without the aqueduct in place already. But we have the ski slopes
Yeah,
to either
absolutely.
side of us.
Yeah, yeah.
The natural beauty, the scenic beauty of the rolling terrain to the
it's
hills
beautiful,
and the
yeah.
agriculture. Yep. The wineries coming on board and growing.
Yes.
Colin, let's get into some administrative type things.
Well, and that's always the fun part. So, as we know, governments are not always necessarily the most efficient at the way that they do things. Do you see opportunities for either organizational changes to save money or to be able to provide better services to the community?
That's a really well-pointed question, because if you're going to get better services, maybe you're willing to pay a little bit more for that, so maybe the cost cut isn't necessary. If you're not going to get better services, then can you cut my cost? One or the other, and so I appreciate the question that way. I'm looking toward both. I left the Engineering Construction Management Division. We did wind up cutting some costs, but also while trying to increase the service available. We had 3 department heads that were working closely together with me, and now they're going to report directly to the county administrator. Those are folks that are responsible for development, for zoning, for capital projects in the millions of dollars, and having their coordination, them working closely together as well as closely with me. That's one aspect of one division that we are moving forward to get better service. I like to think, because I was a director there, it was working pretty well. Over the past 2 years, we have built a heck of a relationship with the staff who really is responsible ultimately for all the success. Now, moving forward, EDC business development, we are looking at them. We've had some discussions with the commissioners on that. As I said, we have a survey out now of EDC. What do you think? Where should we be going? A lot of these people have been here. I've been here 15 years, twice that long. They've
Right.
seen what's worked, what hasn't worked. So right now the ears are open on that one. And then as we go through over the next year, individual divisions and departments will take a look. But I want to be careful to say first that, you know, I love the old doctor's creed, which is first do no harm. We have to recognize that many things are working very well.
Yeah.
We are, thanks to our commissioners and our fiscally conservative approach, we didn't have to lay anyone off during the recession that we had. We kept moving, we kept building, and as much as we could, we kept improving.
Right. And we increased our credit rating.
Increased the credit rating. The agencies look at us very favorably. That reduced the interest rates, which allowed more spending for production, which I call quality of life stuff, whether it's roads, infrastructure, just entertainment around town and in the county. So we've already done one on the one that I was most familiar with, and we are going to be looking toward more a combing through of saying what is working, what's not working. I would also really like to work with the commissioners to reward the people that are working harder than maybe the average employee, because I think it's those folks that are working harder that really inspire the rest of us to say, I think I can reach a little bit higher. And in a government setting, that sometimes can be hard to reward the overachievers. But if they're doing good and they're saving money, I think merit is a way that the current salary study will be looking at that, to say, how can we incentivize these people to save the county money, to do better work? And we really want to recognize what's going good in the county as well as the slight tweaks that may need to be fixed.
So here is one of the hot button issues, and we haven't really touched on a lot of those, but what are your thoughts on a stadium?
I'm raising a family here. I have 2 children. A lot of the conversations around the academic or the athletic events that we attend with family members is, wouldn't it be wonderful if we had an athletic facility, some type of athletic hub that could be used for a multi-purpose? And when we talk about multi-purpose, when we talk about creating a place where people could come and visit, we talk about tourism, we talk about raising revenues for the county. I think if anything happens stadium-wise or otherwise, it has to be multi-purpose. It has to be functional to the point where the vast majority of the community can either enjoy it or benefit from what it is creating. Just a single use may or may not work.
We have time for 2 more questions. Tom, I'll throw it to you.
You know, one of the elephants in the room is always I-81 and I-70, and you know how that fits into the whole economic development picture. And I wonder, I don't know, do you have some role in how the county pushes to get our, like, say, state representatives behind this, and people like John Mulaney, who's really interested in infrastructure? That's his key.
Right.
Even what he's doing on the federal level, and you know how that, because that is a real big issue here now in terms of the substratum of how everything else can work here, because that's what these outside people look at. It's
Right.
one of the things they look at, because I think some of the quality of life is being improved with some of these other things, but the transportation really, I mean, we have the airport, but we need to get there and get people, you know,
Exactly.
safely. And I think this is an issue. I don't know, do you deal with that in this office? I'm just figuring how this works.
Yeah, I do. In fact, it was about a year ago when session was in Annapolis that we had a question dealing with Delegate Parrott and some of the other delegation of why is it costing the state, why do they project $600 million to rebuild the interstate? Well, doing a little bit more research, it was $1 million, or I'm sorry, $1 billion. Literally $1 billion is what they had in the planning and programming budget. So we went back and with staff did a little bit of homework, checked out state highway bids and so forth, and getting down into the details. said, dear SHA, dear Secretary Ron, we think this is closer to maybe 200 million total. He took it back to his staff. He was new at the time, and he's very much a Chevrolet versus a Buick guy or a Cadillac guy.
Yeah.
We got them to relook at their estimate and really cut it in half. So that number, cutting that number in half, got their interest in maybe this is doable instead of an easy answer of it's not even possible to raise 600 million or $1 billion for Western Maryland.
Yeah, well, so what government bureaucrats do is really important. Like in this instance, I mean, it's getting into the weeds of that issue that really makes it look a lot different.
It is.
It would seem, which is great. I didn't know that part of the story.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So well, price tags do matter.
They do big. If it's too big, they're not even going to touch it.
They're not even going to look at it. Yeah.
But I do agree entirely that the image and one of the things that we put forward to the state is we have 60,000 vehicles going through Interstate 81 per day.
Per day. That's
If
a
you
lot.
say there's two vehicles and two people in each vehicle, that's 120,000 people. It would stand to reason that maybe a couple of those people want to develop their next business somewhere.
Yeah.
And the image we can create by improving the interstates, both 81 and 70, is incredible.
Absolutely.
They're not a natural resource, but they are a resource.
But people see.
It's all about presentation.
Yes,
right?
it is. Well,
it is entirely.
The picture is worth 1,000
perception.
words.
All right. So I think we're out of time at this point. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining
Thanks
us.
for having me.
Ron.
Yep.
Next up on the flip side, our panel weighs in on the chaos surrounding the Trump administration. Stay tuned.